And welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Listing. And today we have Farrukh Normuradov joining us. Thanks for coming, man. And Farrukh is one of the awesome real estate agents here in Toronto, and also a Airbnb host with lots of experience that had an amazing journey starting from zero to managing over 20 properties. And would love to hear a little bit of your story of how you got there and the roller coaster, the emotional roller coaster you mentioned to me that you've had on this path. So tell us a little bit about your storyline and how you got into it. And yeah.
Thanks for inviting. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be a part of this nice podcast. Our journey started back in 2013. Back then, my girlfriend, she started to rent out her condo on Airbnb. It was something she would do as a hobby here and there. And then when we started dating, I kind of picked up on the idea, and I thought it was a great opportunity to become entrepreneurs and potentially build a business.
Wow, that was a while ago, 2013.
2013.
You're one of the original gangsters then.
Correct. Airbnb was not as popular in Toronto. Even the prices. You wouldn't think you would be able to charge X amount. So you would be thinking, okay, let me just break even, make a bit on top, right? But we still had jobs, and we were focusing on our jobs. Airbnb happened to be bigger later on, and we were already in Airbnb itself.
Right. So you were able to actually get all the nicks and different things, and figure out what's working, what's not before it blew up. So you had a lot of the on the ground experience, which is amazing.
I mean, it was interesting. It wasn't just me. The girlfriend then became my wife, right? We were doing it together. We put in a lot of work. She had a baby as well, so our daughter was born. It was kind of challenging time, but you know what? We kept going, and despite the fact that the winters were slow back then, 2014.
I mean, they're always not the hottest.
Correct. Yeah, they were
slower.
We were focusing on the summers, but kept on going during the winter season as well. And when Airbnb became more popular sometime in 2015 or so, we already had multiple units by then.
Right. So how fast did you scale? So you said you started doing one in 2013. Correct. And then how did it progress over how many years? How many units did you scale?
In the beginning, we had to understand whether we would be able to keep up with the bills, right? I did get to know some owners of the condos in the building, in that specific building that we were living. Made things easier that we lived in that building.
Right.
And over the time, I got to know some owners, and I got to meet them in person and kind of offer that opportunity. And back then the rents were cheaper. A lot of owners still back then didn't want to deal with long-term tenants, right? So I said, you know what? I would offer our services and say, look, let me take care of your condo. You're welcome to come and check on it, here and there. No problem. Just give me a little notice, and we'll take it from there.
Was it an arbitrage situation, or it was more like a co-hosting? Were you basically doing Airbnb on their behalf and taking a cut from it, or you were doing or you were renting it from them and you're just paying them a specific sum of money and then Airbnb in their unit?
No. We would pay them X amount per month. We would pay a little premium on top of the market rent.
Right. And just a quick interjection for our listeners and viewers. There's really virtually three ways of running an Airbnb. Correct. First way is to purchase a unit or multiple units, where you're paying your mortgage, when you're paying all the utilities and maintenance, and then you're listing it on Airbnb and collecting the rent from that, and then basically whatever difference you make from the mortgage and all the expenses, that's what you're making on your Airbnb unit. The second way is called arbitrage, where what you're describing is you're paying an owner basically a year rental fee. Correct. You get a contract with them, and then listing it on Airbnb, and whatever you make from that versus what you're paying the owner, that's your profit, that's called arbitrage, right? It's a very popular model, especially in the markets where there is not a lot of STR regulations, and that was the thing back in the day.
That's
in Toronto.
right. Yeah.
And then the third option is the co-hosting option, where the person owns the unit, they are happy to put it on Airbnb, you list it under their name, everything, and you're just managing the process for them. That's called co-hosting, and that's what actually, with Adastra, that's what we focus on. We focus on basically providing that service to all the owners. So yeah, just a quick thing for everybody. So you were focused mostly on arbitrage, renting out properties, so you had monthly recurring expenses of the rent, right, that you had to be very conscious of, right? That's why you're saying you have to be careful how you scale this.
Right. Prior to all these regulations kicking in Toronto, we were focusing on, so we created a property management company.
Right.
We hired a few people that were taking care of the cleaning services. We hired an assistant that was taking care of the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to budget that as well. We couldn't do everything on our own.
Of course.
And over the years, we progressed and we improved. We got better, right? Then
I completely agree.
At some point, it was all about copy and paste, right?
100%. I wouldn't be able to do anything that I'm working on right now without the help of my team. 100%. I totally
Absolutely,
agree.
yes. You have to delegate. You have to trust, and a lot of us have problems with delegations or delegating something to other people, and that's normal. But you gotta try. At least you have to give it a try and see how it's gonna work out, and then see whether it's working out or not. And of course, it comes down to budgeting. Very important.
Right.
When you have about a crew of 10 people, you have to pay them salaries. So the expenses were high. We would pay higher rents to the owners. That would make sense for them to rent the units to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, rents went so high that we had to pay higher in rents. At some point where we didn't have many condos downtown, so many on Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
So the rental market went absolutely ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
People couldn't find rentals. And a lot of people back then, I remember prior to COVID, I'm talking times, would blame Airbnb. I wouldn't argue that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Airbnb took a big chunk of rental properties.
Right,
back
that's what
then.
a lot of people are saying, that it was out of control. So it
Correct.
did need a little bit of
Absolutely.
regulation, but sometimes the pendulum swings the other way.
Right.
And that's what happened now, I guess, when it just went absolutely berserk.
What City done over the course of a few years? Well, number one thing, COVID came in quickly and kind of fixed everything up.
Yeah, so I
COVID
remember
was
your
the main,
journey was
correct. Yeah,
was wild.
Yeah, from 2013, 14 all the way to 2020, we had 20 plus units on and off, and when COVID happened, we didn't expect that. We didn't see that coming.
I don't think a lot of people
Nobody did.
That.
And we had to adapt quickly and get rid of the condos, return them to the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Lost a bunch of money, but that's the part of the game. You got to understand what's going on, and we didn't know whether we had to wait or not. We didn't know how long that was going to go on for.
Right.
But at some point, we had to say, okay, enough is enough. Waited for a few weeks, and it looked like it wasn't going to get better. It was only going to get worse.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge emotional roller coaster, I'm sure, because if you are doing arbitrage, you have a bill of 20 condos multiplied by at least 2,000 plus. That's close to $50,000 in just rent you have to pay.
With all the mortgages, salaries, rents that we used to pay, our monthly costs were way above $50,000.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's and if things are not moving, if
you can't.
You go bankrupt very quickly. So
Correct.
maybe, that was a very quick.
The cash flow, very
decision.
important, right? Cash flow is very important, and
Right, 100%.
if the money's not coming in,
you
can,
run out of money
you
very
can print
quickly.
it.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but
we're not Bank of Canada.
Hey, listen, the Bank of Canada does it. They press the button M2, or the US is just print them. But people, when Bank of Canada does it, that's all right. But when people try and do that, it's called counterfeiting. So
absolutely,
that's an interesting concept, though. Yeah, well, I mean, that's crazy. Thanks for kind of sharing a little bit of that story, and just a little bit more about scaling your business when you went from that 1 to 3 properties, and you mentioned that you had to hire people because you couldn't do everything else yourself. You had to delegate some of those things. You had to put cleaning teams in place, because that's what I found. It's very challenging to run as you're scaling, trusting various separate teams. You have to really bring everything under one roof. Can you speak a little bit more around the scaling aspect of a business like that? What was your experience, the biggest challenges there, and just the journey and scaling?
Well, back then, my wife and I, we still carried our jobs. We had our jobs. We both had jobs. So Airbnb was kind of extra income, it was like a side hustle. We didn't see it as a primary source of income at that time. So even all the way to the point where we had like 4 or 5 units under our management on a platform, we still had our jobs. Then she gave birth, and I quit my job. Right. And we focused just on Airbnb, took on a couple of more units, and even a couple of my friends back then said, why are you wasting your time working somewhere else? Focus on Airbnb. And I say, right. You know what? It makes sense.
You have a system. It's working. It's making
Correct.
money. Multiply, right?
It was a time where I was like, what do I do? And after speaking to some really smart individuals that were a little older than me, that self-employed as well, good friend of mine said, especially this good friend of mine said, look, you're wasting your time with these jobs. Focus on Airbnb if it's bringing you X amount. And then after a certain period of time, when I realized that we could charge more per night, I just learned that we were not charging enough.
They say if your calendar is fully filled, you're not charging enough. Then you need to.
Yes and no, but what I learned from that is this. So one day I just randomly set up the calendar at X amount of price per night. Right, I was double or triple of what we were charging on a regular basis.
Right,
so double at least. It was a Carabana weekend, 2014, I believe. And so we had this condo, and I said, okay, you know what? It's busy. There's nothing available in the city. I'm gonna price it at like $350 a night, and see what's gonna be if I get any demand, if I get any.
Back in the day, that was a lot of money. Now it's basically a cup of coffee.
Correct. So, when I realized that I got a request right away, I got a booking right away at $350 per night for a 1-bedroom condo.
Wow.
I said, okay, so we are definitely charging less than we're supposed to.
Right.
Right away, all the calendars were fixed up. I brought up the prices per
Did
every
you use
unit.
did you start maybe researching, I'm not sure which year it was, whether there were any automated tools like Price Labs or something else?
I never really trusted Airbnb's price tip options.
Smart pricing.
Smart pricing.
I don't use that either.
I thought it was, I didn't think it was smart at all. What Airbnb needs they want you to rent your unit
100%.
to keep you happy.
Of course.
But I also want to make money.
Yep.
Right? So when they find demand and supply, and they can match that at certain price that they want to match at.
100%.
People are happy, they're happy, but
I would definitely.
But you're getting paid less.
Of course.
As a traveler, you're saving, no problem. But as a host,
100%.
you would be losing. So what I did is I said, you know what? I'm just gonna push up the prices and see what's gonna happen. And I'll take it. I'll go with the flow.
Yep.
See whether it's gonna work out or not. And I had to adapt and see where I can push the buttons, where I had to bring down the price. And I would just play with numbers.
Right.
We had TIFF back then as well, right? The Carabana is in August, then we have TIFF in September.
Exactly.
So you could charge X amount as well, premium there, and those weeks make up your revenues pretty much.
Oh yeah, 100%.
At some point, I learned that I could just play around with numbers, and that's the way I learned the market. That's the way I actually understood the prices, because it wasn't about renting your property 100%.
Yep.
It was about maximizing your profit, maximizing rental income.
Yeah, 100%. And so you didn't use any, of course you didn't use any Airbnb smart pricing, but maybe there were other pricing tools that you explored, or you just eyeballed and really just play with it?
Back then, I would simply, I say, you know what, okay, let me see what's going on in the city. And I would go to Airbnb, see what was happening around me, what was going for what price.
Okay, yeah. Because now there's great tools like, Price Labs. We use that. It uses AI algorithms, and it's way smarter than the smart pricing in Airbnb.
Absolutely, no, 100%. And then I would go to, I would check out hotel prices.
Right, that's an
Right,
important
so what
thing.
I did,
They do take that into account.
it was the first year. We had multiple units, and I was learning about the count. I was learning
Right.
about the prices. So I went to check out hotel prices and see what weekends the prices were higher than other days. And I was like, what's happening that week? I don't know. Why is this week so much more expensive? Why is this weekend so much more expensive?
Then
What
you
the hell is
research what's
happening?
yeah.
And then when I looked into it, I would look it up. And I
Taylor
see
Swift is coming into town.
there's a conference at Metro Convention Center, right? Or there was a Toronto Film Festival, or there were the comedy shows going on in the city, right? So I said, you know what? Okay, perfect. So now I know what's happening, and now let me just push up the prices and see if I get any hits.
Right.
And based on that, I will just play with the prices.
I wonder if tools like that now actually take away from all the manual labor and provide really good results, because I've seen really great results with something like Price Labs, and it really takes away from, I do monitor, of course, what's happening in the city, hotel prices, other competitors, right? You have to, especially when you're listing a new property, you can't just, put whatever price, because that tool is also, you need to set not a minimum, but like an average price in the tool, and then it works from it. So when you're setting that average price, you have to know what's happening, obviously, right? But then you might miss a weekend, right? Like you don't realize that there is like some famous singers come. Famous you will know, but somebody is coming and it's raising the prices. It's difficult. This tool basically picks up on those things, and I found it very helpful. Any other perhaps automations that you were implementing as you were scaling, because you probably have to when you're building these teams? Anything that you did, or?
Believe it or not, no.
Oh wow.
I just learned what was going. I had to learn about the events, and I knew that we have big events, long weekends. Some conferences happen same time every year. Right, holidays we have same time every year.
Yep.
You understand what's going on, right? Toronto Film Festival happens. It's going on second to third week of September every year.
Yep.
So based on that, I would just price smartly and use my own knowledge.
Right. What about just internal systems? Anything that you were doing for the internal teams to automate the process to make things a little bit easier, or you were just using maybe like Google Sheets and keeping things simple?
Good question. That would be so. Back then, my wife,
right,
she would take care of those things. She would work with the team, work on a scheduling, right? Work on how many people we needed that specific day. And at some point, she's a very smart girl. She built a cleaning team, and then she carried that business. Now she has a decent cleaning company.
Amazing.
And that was the beginning of her journey.
I feel like you realize very quickly that cleaning can make or break your Airbnb business. And you cannot rely on individual cleaners because they might cancel. There's no, they don't have this responsibility. There's no repercussion, because if they decide to not show up, there's no global ranking for cleaners. They will find another job and then they'll get paid this way, right? So there's no repercussions for them. And you can't fully trust those teams. So you need to build your own. And I'm seeing that for myself and for our business. That's why I'm starting a cleaning company as well with a partner who's going to be focused on managing the people, and she's going to be head of cleaning.
Right.
That's the only way to ensure quality and reduce no-shows. So it makes perfect sense.
It comes down to it's not just about building a team. It's about nurturing the team and teaching the people about your standards, right?
Of course.
We had a lot of people that really wouldn't care about our standards, and of course we had to part ways.
Yeah.
But in the end, you do find like-minded individuals.
Takes time, though, right?
It does take time.
My cleaning instructions are 15 pages long. Not everybody cares to read them.
It's absolutely crazy. I know. I think a different level, but. Back then it was we did get lucky with a couple of individuals. They brought in some friends and they worked as a team together, so we got everything aligned. I felt like everything aligned. We had a great run.
It's very important to find like-minded people. I mean, that's why I have you here. It's amazing. And
thanks, man.
And I mean, now kind of switching gears into profitability. At your peak, when you were running these 23 units, how did it feel? Probably it felt like you were on the top of the world. And
it felt amazing. It felt amazing. The PayPal would just a lot of PayPal pop-ups on your phone.
Feels good, eh?
Yes. On the other hand, we did have a lot of expenses as well, so we had to be cautious about the spendings. not gonna lie, we had a great run, 3-4 year great run. Could be better, right? Could be worse.
Always be better, you know.
Exactly. So I embrace the moments and great memories, right? And but overall, I felt like that business allowed us to feel that we can build something bigger on our own, right? Although she was already doing things on her own. I remember back then, girlfriend, then wife, she was doing things on her own. She was more of a self-employed. I was working in the hospitality industry, but I think that business allowed us to learn a lot about ourselves, and we were able to grow as business individuals as well.
Right. I feel like you learn the most when you're in the open sea and you have to figure it out on your own. Nobody's there to tell you what to do. There's no boss.
Absolutely,
A, B, and C,
yeah.
and it's an incredible.
But don't forget, the apartment business is not just about collecting rent. It also comes down with a lot of maintenance issues.
100%.
We had to deal with a lot of floods. Toilets would get clogged, right? The sinks and all kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The pipes. So I had to learn over the time how to cut down on our losses. So I had to learn certain things to do on my own.
Right, because you're also responsible for those things because you're the one renting the unit. Of
course.
When you're co-hosting, you just say, "Hey, owner, your thing,"
Right.
and you charge them, right?
That's
it's
right.
a little bit less responsibility. You have all the responsibility. You have to learn how to cut down on those things. Otherwise, you're not making margins, right? Like otherwise, you're just working for free, right? And then you, like on my end, like the amount of things that I've learned in the last, 8-9 months that we've been doing it has just been incredible. And the personal growth and just experience has been insane. You can't learn that in a corporate job, and I probably would never be able to go back. I'll just figure out other things to do. Worst comes to worst, right? I know you build on this, right? It's pretty awesome. And in terms of how fast did you get to the level of profitability? Because for us, finally after half a year that we're seeing net income now, which is amazing because of course with every business you have to invest and you have to put the money into the business, have teams, you have to pay salaries, you before you get clients it takes a little bit of time. Even when you have clients, like you have a lot of expenses. So we're finally churning out profit, which was incredible for me to see when I was doing budgeting and accounting for the last month. How fast did you get to that profitability level?
Like I mentioned back then, we didn't know about the prices. So we would charge X amount to just break even, make a bit of cash on top, carrying our own jobs, right? I would say a year and a half into the business, into that Airbnb journey, we started to see better income, and we started to understand that this could be something that we can grow bigger.
Right. At 3-4 properties probably, right?
Oh, it was 5-6 but
gotcha,
some point. And have 5-6 properties, you can make around about 10,000 a month, let's say, right? In income, net income from all those properties. That felt like, we were still making decent amount.
After all the expenses, right?
Correct,
Nice.
So $1,000 per unit, it would be still good income for us back then.
Yes.
So we said, you know what, if we have 10, so we can make, even if we make $1,500 per unit, with 10 units, it's going to be $15,000 in net income, right, on a monthly basis.
Right.
If you look at the bigger picture, it could have been probably less because in the winter we would have to charge less.
Right.
But even back then, in the winter, people would come and pay less than in the summer. But when I learned about the prices, our actual profits, they doubled. Yeah.
Wow.
But that took time.
Yeah, of course, 100%. I mean, when you hire people, you also have more expenses, but then you're growing, and as you're expanding to many units. And at the top of this empire that you had, what was, if it's not a secret, a ballpark amount that you guys were netting for the benefit of our listeners? What were you looking at? Again, like ballpark, we realized that your expenses were above 50,000 for sure. So you were probably, of course, making way more than that.
Well, the lifestyle was getting more expensive as well.
It always does. You just make more money, but you don't save more for some reason.
We had a baby as well. Baby was growing and traveling and living the life.
Right.
But I would say at the end of the year, if you look at the 30 to 35% off profit, that would make sense. I think at 100%, let's say if you do $1 million in rental income a year.
Yeah.
After all the expenses at the peak time, right?
Yeah,
After
yeah.
all the expenses, you probably net about 30% or so, maybe a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had a property management company. We would pay
Right.
our own, we would pay
Employees.
ourselves salaries, right?
Mhm.
We also were employed by the company.
Okay. So yeah, you pay that. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but 30%, I would say 25 to 30 to 35%, best case scenario, which was pretty good.
Yeah, and if you include your salaries, it's probably closer to 50%.
No, I'm saying including salaries. So
including salary. Okay.
our
Yeah,
own
that's
salaries. So
really
30
cool.
to 35% of that million
Yeah.
rental income.
That's amazing.
That kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah,
now.
I mean that's really great. That's a great turnout. And obviously, like there's probably a lot of challenges running that business. Like you said, the clogged toilets and the pipes and dealing with floods. Any top three maybe challenges that come top of mind that you had to face when you were running the business?
Well, back then, again, in 2014, 15, 16, when Airbnb was becoming more popular, the management offices, right, they didn't really know much about it. But the more it became obvious that Airbnb was around, the property managers learned quickly what was going on, the security members, right, security staff of the building, and I had to fight here and there, argue, prove my points, and although our building allowed Airbnb, there was still a lot of pressure. There was a lot of neighbors complaining here and there as well, or they would create some kind of
Fuss around. Right?
exactly, and yeah, anything they could come up with, but
You know what? Actually, sorry to interject, but one of our clients, I met the neighbor literally 2 days ago when I was visiting the property, checking up on it, and that neighbor was devastated. His family was devastated by a long-term tenant that was living there.
Yeah.
The person was partying. Literally, was telling me how the books were falling off their shelves.
Yeah.
They were living underneath. It's a stacked townhouse, and it was just terrible experience. They had to call cops multiple times. It was a really bad situation. And he told me that he's had an incredible experience with us managing the property, that no issues with guests. He's like, I'm so happy. This is day and night. We can actually have a peaceful life. So there's a big contrast here. Long-term tenant.
Long-term tenants,
versus short-term,
long-term tenants always hit or miss. Airbnb can also be hit or miss. Everything is hit or
But you
miss
can
when it
do-
comes to
you-
such business. But you do understand that you choose what type of clientele you want to work with. The biggest mistakes that people were making back then, I always thought that wasn't the right thing to do. They were renting out their units to parties. Friday, Saturday night, or Saturday night only, right?
No,
that
no,
was
no.
big flag,
Oh, no, no.
big red flag.
People who do that, they're just destroying the community. I get the property owners who are neighbors. You don't want that.
Correct.
You don't want. My parents were at the cottage the other weekend, and then they have this wild party happening in the next door cottage, and they're like, "What the hell?" They couldn't sleep half the night. You don't want that. But I feel like you can really alleviate a lot of those problems by setting strict house rules. And the experienced property managers, they do, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we operate. We're very strict about it with fines. If you party, $1,000 fine. Boom. If you smoke, $1,000 fine. And I have not had issues for the last half a year with any of our guests.
All right, nice. I guess the smartest thing back then was setting up the minimum stay. It was 4 nights. Then I would see if there were any gaps, maybe 3 nights, 2 nights during the week. If I had to fill in the gaps, if I had a Friday, Saturday night gap, I would rent out the unit, but I would be careful with who I'm renting out to.
Right.
And I would actually go and check on every unit here and there to see what's going on. It's never perfect.
Right.
And if you're booking it for 2-3 people and you have friends over, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Just respect the neighbors.
Of course, 100%.
Respect the timing. It happens. One day I had a booking for 2 or 3 nights, and apparently it was 3 girls, and then 2 girls were trying to, they organized a small get together that the other girl didn't know about. It was her birthday. They wanted to do a little birthday get together. So the birthday girl didn't even know that the friends were gonna come and visit them all at their Airbnb, and they were a little loud. It was like maybe around 11 p.m., maybe closer to midnight now, and I can hear. And it's funny, I lived on the same floor.
Okay.
So
that's convenient.
Exactly. So I thought I
you don't even need to put a monitoring device.
I could hear voices. I could hear all that music, and across the hall. And I lived maybe 3-4 doors on the other side of the corridor, and I'm like, what's going on? There's no party people on my floor.
Yeah.
I said, let me go check out our Airbnb. What's going on with my Airbnb? So I go to the Airbnb, and I can hear people speak. I can hear like 10, 15 people there in the unit. So I nicely knocked the door, spoke with the girls, explained the situation. They left. It's okay, it happens. It's just a matter of when people get a little carried away
100%.
With drinks and music. I get it. It just has to be within the boundaries.
Right. I mean, you're lucky that you're on the same floor, but most people don't have that luxury. That's why we
Correct.
install monitoring devices for all the clients that want that, so we can say right away, oh, there's a noise.
Where is the monitoring device?
You plug it into the wall, or there's different ones. The ones that we use, we plug it into the socket, and it basically monitors for volumes above a specific decibels, also for smoke and various other things. So
interesting. All right.
Yeah, and it also identifies that there's too many Wi-Fi devices, meaning if there's more than 6 phones or whatever, right? Then it means that there's a lot of people there above the regular allowed amount. You set that, and it works with all those numbers, and with the algorithm, it kind of gives you notifications.
Interesting.
And there's
was it set up at the cottage?
No, at the cottage it wasn't set up because somebody else is managing those properties, right? There's a management company, and that's why we sent an email saying, hey, you guys should be using monitoring devices.
I like that.
So basically, you're saying the biggest challenges you faced were, literally
dealing with the property management company
Yeah.
of the building, dealing with some security stuff back then that weren't happy with us doing all the Airbnb, right?
Now it's a little more streamlined.
Although I was always transparent with them, trying to work it out, and then plumbing issues, other stuff, the noise complaints, right? The elevators.
Right.
Then at some point in our building, we had a couple elevators broken, only
can't
one
really do
working.
with that,
People would complain about the elevators. So all these things, I realized no matter what I did, there would always be some kind of challenges or problems.
Yes.
So I just have to deal with them when they come.
Right.
Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
It's true.
I say, you know what, I'd rather be resilient and deal with the situation when it happens versus saying, okay, it's going to happen, and being stressing out about it. You have to live your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. Where do you see the whole landscape of STR rentals going in Toronto, GTA, in the near future? Is there, what's next? Is there a future for this? Because you have a lot of experience in the past. You've seen what's happening with the STR regulations. You are back from what we've discussed
I'm helping people with their
exactly.
Right, yes.
You're back at managing things. You have a lot of experience. Where do you see things going in the GTA? Just wanted to hear your thoughts around that.
I think the biggest issues right now would be communication with the compliance department. Short-term rental process right now, when you apply for a license, it's pretty easy. Often enough, it takes forever to get that license, and then they put you, I don't know why, it says pending approval of what? When my clients would submit all the documents and still wait for that approval to come for weeks and months, as if they don't want you to do Airbnb, and they want you to put that unit back on, throw it back in a pool of long-term tenants, although the market right now, especially in the city, is flooded with rental properties. There's more supply than demand, and even though it's summer, I still see a lot of properties available out there. This wouldn't have happened.
Long-term rent or
correct
short-term?
long-term rent. This wouldn't have happened last year or year before or before COVID. Now this reminds. I'm not gonna say it reminds me of COVID times, but it does. It shows me that there is not as much demand right now, even in the summer. I'm not even talking about the winter. Winter time was tough for a lot of landlords out there. So long-term tenancy, it's become also a challenge. The rents are much lower than the landlords would like to get paid, and we see a lot of new buildings finishing up, and the occupancy is happening, right? Once one building is built, you see 300, 400, 500 units plus per building.
Flooding the market.
Correct. Yeah. Long term longer. I'm talking about long term. So if you can't get your Airbnb license and you can't really rent it out, you're stuck.
Right.
What do you do?
Paying the mortgage, paying
Correct.
everything.
That's a lot of stress, right? And then a lot of people don't believe in that long-term tenancy. They don't want to do long-term tenancy.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Right, because they want to be more flexible. So it depends on the person. Depends on whether it's going to be a primary residence or rental just a investment property. It depends on what you have or why you're buying this property. But overall, one of the biggest reasons why the market is slow right now as well, other than the interest rates being high, is the fact that that the rents are much lower. And with such expenses, you can't even break even. Forget about breaking even. You have to put in X amount from your own pocket every month.
Yeah, it's rough, for sure. And but in terms of specifically STR, so you're saying that it's really navigating how to work with compliance and moving forward from here, right?
Sooner or later, something was supposed to happen. So STR thing is not a bad thing for the city. I don't think it's just properly managed by that compliance department or the city itself.
A disaster.
That's the hardest part. If there was more transparency in that, I think it would have been in a much better spot.
Do you think they're going to come up with more stringent rules and really suffocate the whole industry of STR, or are they going to really figure it out and show understanding and kind of, bring it together?
I don't think it's going to get worse right now. At the end of the day, they see what's happening with people. People are going through a very hard time, right? It's tight.
But do they care about the people? That's the question, really, right?
To a certain extent. To a certain extent.
Yeah, I see. Well, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing your story, and this was a delightful conversation, and hope we'll see you again sometime soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Take care, buddy. Cheers.